What's going on, guys? Going on the instant reaction here from the Connor and Mark Show on our YouTube page. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page, Connor and Mark Show. And you can also follow us on social media as well on Twitter and Instagram at Connor and Mark Show. A lot to talk about. The Eagles season, the 2020 season's finally over, thankfully, as it's we're entering the off season. After watching that painful game last night with Nate Sudfeld leading the Eagles in the fourth quarter, a lot of controversy from how it ended. Now a lot of controversy surrounding the quarterback situation as Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson talked with the media today, and Carson Wentz said he did not want to talk to the media, according to the PR team. The Eagles now hold the sixth pick in the NFL draft, and at the end of this episode, or at the end of this video, we'll go over a little short six pick mock draft of where we think, as of right now, where the Eagles stand and what player that we think that they could end up with. But Mark, how you doing, man? And what's your reaction really to the Eagles in the season and where they stand now going into the offseason?
Yeah, well, first of all, doing good and happy that we were able to get together just a day after the season concluded and able to talk about, like you mentioned, all the stuff going on. It's really not known in Philadelphia, especially with the Eagles, the dysfunction that's been taking place this entire season. I definitely cannot pick one word to describe this entire season because there's multiple, things definitely to pick out here. But, I do want to go over it and just talk about some of the things that went wrong for this team. And, not only dating back to the start of this season, but, some things that kind of set this up in a way, based on front office moves and drafting and stuff like that. But there's a whole bunch to dive in that took place this year, starting with none other than the $1 million quarterback or multi-million-dollar quarterback in Carson Wentz, and the second round draft pick in Jalen Hurts. So I'll throw it back over to you. But, I thought that game last night was, boring and really carried no substance to it. Clearly, there's a lot of controversy on how it ended, like you mentioned. But, I'm excited to dive into it and examine it a little deeper.
Yeah, I'm going to start. First, I'm going to state my opinion on the controversy at hand. I guess it's going to be a controversy for like 3 or 4 days because when the draft comes around in April, I think no one's really going to care. But obviously, a lot of media heads and obviously former players too were angry that Doug Peterson decided to take Jalen Hurts out of the game in the fourth quarter when they were down only 3 points and put in Nate Sudfeld in the fourth quarter. Now, Doug Peterson said his mindset throughout the whole game was he wanted to win the game, and that was the mindset. Obviously, that's BS. We all know that's not true. They wanted to be able to get the sixth pick in the draft instead of the ninth pick. And when you look at the sixth pick and the ninth pick, it's a big difference, I think, in my opinion, where the prospects lay, and we'll take a deep look into it, or a quick look into it at the end of the episode. But yeah, listen, they absolutely made the right move last night. I know a lot of people on ESPN who are, saying that was a disgrace last night. The only reason people actually care because it was a primetime game. It's the NFL's fault for putting the Eagles in Washington in the NFL Sunday Night Football time slot, and it's really no different than what other teams are doing who are at the bottom of the league. Late in the season, they put in worse players so they can ensure they get a better pick in April, and that's what the Eagles did. And there was absolutely no benefit for the Eagles win last night. There really isn't no benefit at all. And they made the right move, and I'll give props to Howie for that one because it probably came from him and Jeffrey Lurie at the top, because there's no upside in winning that game other than a little bit of pride that you get the next day, I guess, from not, giving up on your last game. But really, it's really, when you look at the prospects in this upcoming draft, I think right around that sixth pick, it's a really good spot to be in my opinion. You can trade up. If you actually want to think about getting a quarterback, you can trade back. If another team wants to get a quarterback, you can stay at 6 and get a great player on the offensive side of the ball or defense side of the ball. So I'm not pissed about it. This is just be something that people are going to, bitch about for like 2 or 3 days. And then once the April comes around and you're sitting at 6 and there's a really good player on the board, I don't think anybody's going to be playing in then. So I like it. I'm happy that, they lost the game. It's good for the franchise for them to lose the game. And I'm excited now where they stand in the draft. And it's going to be exciting all season as we're entering the quarterback controversy. If there even will be, I think in my heart of hearts that Carson Wentz probably played his last game with the Eagles. I think he's done. I think he's getting traded this offseason. I think that it's not as hard as a lot of people are saying, like guys like Andrew Brandt, who was on Twitter, poo-pooing the idea that Carson could get traded because of his contract. I think it's pretty easy to maneuver the NFL cap situation So it's going to be hard on the Eagles in 2021 taking that huge cap hit if they do trade him before a new year. Or I think they can't trade him until the new year starts, and then June 1st is like the day where I think the money sets in. So I think it's going to be easy for them to trade Carson. I think he can get some pretty good value back from maybe a second or third round pick. But I'll throw this to you. What do you think? Just jumping on the controversy last night or whatever kind of controversy really it is. What do you think about that? And what do you think about Carson and the Jalen Hurts dilemma that the Eagles are facing this offseason?
Yeah, so definitely want to dive in just to, the controversy yesterday, because definitely want to put an end to this and squash it as well. Teams have been doing this for as long as time. And at the end of the day, this is a business. There's a lot of money that's invested into these guys and a lot of money in this entire league. So, the people that are making a big deal about it and saying the integrity of the game is lost. I mean, just go look at the starting roster for the Eagles last night. I mean, you have guys, and this is just a few of the inactives. You have Wentz, Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Miles Sanders, Jordan Mailata, Dallas Goedert, Fletcher Cox, Barnett, and those are just a few, and there's more inactive. So
the whole team was out, yeah.
Exactly. So this notion that he just took him out at the end, I mean, yeah, he did. I mean, half the starters were not playing if you combine both sides of the ball. So, again, I didn't see a problem, and I'm not even saying that from a biased Eagles fan. I know the Giants were upset. I don't really care how the Giants feel.
Why would we care about how the Giants feel?
Don't really. I mean, teams have been doing this to other teams forever. So, you have to ensure the best for your team, and the Eagles, as you mentioned, 6 to 9 is a significant jump. I mean, there's some really good names in this draft, but they could get eaten up at the top of the board. Top 7, some of these really good names could be off the board very quickly. And
also, like from 6 to 9, let's say hypothetically you were at 9 and you wanted to get to 6, that would cost you probably a second round pick. Yeah. So really, by you losing, you just kept your second round pick if you really wanted to move up.
And well, yeah, that was going to be my other point. If you want to move up now from 6, I mean, still it's going to take some capital, but it's going to be easier for moving from 9 to 4 than to 6 to 4, which I don't think is going to happen. But, that's just my evaluation on that. So to wrap this up, it happened. Obviously, the Giants didn't do enough throughout the season to deserve a playoff spot. They needed some help, and they didn't get it. Clearly, I think Washington's better, and they deserve the spot. So I'm happy that happened that way. And we also assured ourselves that Nate Sudfeld is absolute garbage. So happy we got to see that.
Yeah, listen, we didn't need to see him. I know that Doug said he wanted to evaluate the talent on offense, but really he's not good. He got his $2 million and he's probably going to be out of here at the end of this year too. I think that really this quarterback situation is just going to be, it's really, I have no idea where this is going to go. I don't think the Eagles are sold on Jalen Hurts. I think he's good. I think he showed some promise. He obviously needs to work on some stuff in his game to improve himself. Obviously, his accuracy and his and obviously he does work on his arm because his mobility and being able to create with his feet is not, a problem at all. He showed last night that when his arm's not really working, he can use his feet to get it against zone. But really, when you look at Carson, which he declined to speak to the media today. There was a report that came out before the last game that said that he requested a trade. He wants out. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we heard that the day after Doug Peterson was a report came out that he was coming back. So it looks like the rift between Carson and Doug is broken, which is what the report said by Chris Mortensen on ESPN. But really, at this point, I think that Carson is going to be gone, and I don't think that it's going to be hard to move him, especially if Carson's willing to work with the organization to restructure his deal in some way to make it easier for the team receiving him, or I don't think it's going to be a lot really at all. I think that he still has talent. And I still think, there's a lot of teams in the NFL could really use a quarterback, and it's a quarterback driven league. And you look at some teams like the Colts who have Philip Rivers, who did get to the playoffs, but he's probably going to be gone. And I don't think they like Brissett enough to name him the starting quarterback, but you got Denver would be an option. Pittsburgh's an option.
I don't mean to interrupt, but a really low key option that could possibly be a destination could even be the Saints. I mean, they're not sold on Hill or Winston, it seems, and Hill might be better as a utility rather than a starting quarterback. So
Yeah, I don't think Hill's that great of a quarterback. I think that he obviously has talent and he can bring like unique things to an offense as we see him in that utility role. And Jameis obviously is, I don't think he's a good quarterback either. But you can look at Jameis and Carson as similar playing styles as gunslingers who threw a lot of interceptions. But I think that,
I think Wentz is more on his resume and has shown more than
yeah,
Jameis. I
yeah,
mean, Jameis just was more overhyped because he was a number one overall pick. I know Wentz was number two, but he arose on the scene very, very late. I mean, Winston was number one overall, and he was a pretty big name in college football for a while as well. So
yeah, he's just a backup quarterback, I think, at this point in his career. But yeah, I think listen, Drew Brees is probably done. He's gonna retire after this season. The Saints are an option. Carolina even is an option if they don't go quarterback in the draft. So I don't know how it's gonna go. I definitely think there's enough suitors for teams to be interested in Carson. I think that he's probably gonna get traded. I just think that the outlook with Carson in Philadelphia just seems really vague and bland. Like it's not a good match moving forward for the next couple of years. So I don't know if Jalen Hurts is the answer. I don't know if he's going to be the franchise quarterback, or it looks like he's most likely going to be the starting quarterback next year unless they go quarterback in the first round. I wouldn't rule that out yet, just depending on whether Justin Fields or Wilson, what's his first name, is from BYU. Why does Zach Wilson, yeah, from BYU falls to 6? You're gonna have to think about it, especially if you like him, because if you think that Zach Wilson's a better quarterback going forward than Jalen Hurts as a franchise guy, then you should think about taking him because most quarterback's most important position on the field. So, yeah, I'm really excited about the 6th pick in the draft. They really haven't been this high, obviously, since they drafted Carson, and there's a lot of good players in this draft. And there's a lot of guys they can go with in the top of the draft. But I do want to ask you this about Howie Roseman, who did speak with the media today. He regretted saying quarterback factory in the beginning of the year when they drafted Jalen Hurts. And he went back saying a lot, but he mentioned 2017 a lot, which is not surprising at all. I knew he was going to mention that. And he mentioned the roster and the situation they're put in with the pandemic. And obviously he put a lot of blame on himself, and I think he's kind of been humbled a little bit over the past couple of weeks because people have been calling for his job. But it looks like obviously Doug and Howie could be back. So what's the outlook with these two in the front and leading this organization, and what do you think the first move they should make going into the offseason?
I think it's pretty obvious that sometimes or most of the time they're not really on the same page. I think Howie kind of operates the way he believes that it should be operated, while Doug, he's the head coach. He has that football mind. He's been in the game. He has that experience. I mean, the time he's been a starter, the amount of time he was a starter obviously wasn't very high, but he was still in that situation. And I think they need to move forward here with I would say a broken team. I mean, they need to fix this and fix it quick. For most teams, this will be rebuilding time, but for the Eagles, there's really no time to rebuild in this city. It's a rebuild on the fly. And, I do want to mention, I know we were talking the other day, but the 2017 draft class, just an absolute disaster. And that just goes to show again that some of these guys that they might be picking they're not on the same page and they're not working together. So I think the number one thing that they have to do into this offseason is definitely evaluate the talent that they have in the room and what position is going to be the most important position to them. Do they see Jalen Hurts as a possible franchise guy? And if they do, and if they can move forward on that, then that factors, hugely into who they may take in the draft. But whoever they take in the draft, they need to come in and it needs to be an immediate impact guy. For me, and I know we're going to dive into this, on the latter part of the show, but I think a wide receiver really needs to be brought to Philadelphia here in the top 6. I think there's just too many good names, and I think these guys, two of the three, or actually 3 of the 3, playing in the SEC, and that's enough for me, and it should be enough for one of them to take one of these guys. So I really think these guys need to figure it out, and not only in the first round, but the second and third round are going to be vastly important to make up for busted draft picks, that they need to find guys that can come in here and make an immediate role. So, I want to throw it back to you, and I know we're going to finish on the mock draft, but this is a very important topic, and will definitely drive how next season goes.
My bad. Yeah, I think that looking at the players that they could possibly take in the draft, there's 4 guys that really stick out to me when I'm looking at the draft board right now, and we'll talk a little about quarterbacks and whether or not we'll have a better idea around the draft combine where these guys would be slotted at, and what teams could possibly move up if they really want to go acquire Fields or Wilson they drop. But really looking at where the Eagles need, there's 4 guys that really stick out to me. One is Jamar Chase from LSU, who took the year off. He actually put up better numbers in their championship year than Justin Jefferson did. He's a great player, and the year off is obviously a little scary because that's the only year he had of great college production, but he really fits the part of a number 1 wide receiver, especially in the NFL. He's big, he's physical. He makes big catches, and he's a pretty good route runner too. So I like Justin Jefferson. Another wide receiver that I like obviously a lot is Devontae Smith. He's been fantastic for Alabama this year. He's put up huge numbers. He's probably going to win the Heisman, in my opinion. He should. And his frame is a little bit scary right now. We're not scary, but he's thin and small. Well, he's not small. He's like 6'1", but he's pretty thin though.
No, he's very thin.
Yeah. So I don't know how that holds up in the NFL, but he's a great route runner. He has just great talent and great hands as well. So I still think he's going to step in the NFL and be a big playmaker. I just don't know if I'm more sold on him than Jamar Chase. A linebacker, Micah Parsons. I love him for Penn State. He took the year off as well. He's he's big, he's fast. He can blitz and he can play in coverage as well. I think he's a do-it-all linebacker. And really, even though I really do like him, I don't expect the Eagles drafting Micah Parsons because obviously they've devalued the position of linebacker over the course of a couple of years, and I think they like what they saw Alex Singleton this year. He's pretty good, so I don't know if they go that way, but if he's there, it's gonna be pretty hard for me to pass up on him because I think he's gonna be a great player. He's gonna be a Pro Bowler. And then my final one is Patrick Surtain from Alabama, cornerback. I think that cornerback has been a huge issue for these past decade, really, for the Eagles. They've had trouble, finding 2 caliber starting cornerbacks on the outside to, keep up with the passing game. And Avonte Maddox was a huge disappointment this year. He's probably more of a slot corner than he is an outside corner. So I don't mind moving Maddox back into the slot and bringing in a guy like Surtain and cross from Darius Slay. I think that should be really good moving forward with the secondary at cornerback. And he's big, he's physical. He's a shutdown corner. They don't even throw his way at Alabama. You don't hear his name much, but the reason you don't hear it is because they don't go his way. They don't want to test him because he's a great playmaker. So I like him a lot.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I think he had like 2 or 3 targets in the Notre Dame Alabama game. Like you said, they don't even test him.
I'm interested to see the matchup with I don't know if they play size at Alabama or they play man, but Chris Olave is a great player for Ohio State, a great wide receiver, and I want to see that matchup with him and Olave because obviously Fields went off against Clemson in the semifinals, so they're going to be looking to continue that. I'm looking to see how Surtain matches up with their weapons on Ohio State. So yeah, they didn't even want to go his way, and I like him a lot too. So there's a lot of options going forward, and whether or not you want to trade back and get some more picks or even trade up for a quarterback, we'll talk about Fields and Wilson. Maybe if they slide, because looking at the draft order, number 3 or number 2, the Jets, I think they still go quarterback. But you never know. They could go lineman or another player. I think Dolphins pick number 3. They're probably not going to take a quarterback with Tua. I think Atlanta picks number 4. They could take a quarterback depending on how they're feeling with Matt Ryan and the situation with him going forward. And I don't think the team being that bad is his fault, but when you're that high, you always got to think about taking a quarterback. And then who's ahead of us?
5 is going to be Cincinnati.
Yeah, and they won't take a quarterback. They got Burrow. So yeah, there's an option. I think there's a real chance that there'll be a quarterback available when the Eagles pick, whether it's Wilson or it's Fields. If Fields actually slides down, I'm really interested to take Justin Fields. I think he's a great player, and I know the Ohio State thing scares a lot of people because they never produce any good quarterbacks. So,
yeah, but he's. I was gonna just jump in real quick and kind of do a rundown of the same thing, but I totally agree. Mine are very, very similar to yours, and obviously for similar reasons. But I totally agree. Out of my 4 guys, I would obviously go to Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, and Surtain. I think Surtain. If guys aren't there that you really, really like and you want to make a safe pick at 7, I think that is a really safe pick. And I think that would motivate Slay in a way next year to produce a little better, because he has a younger guy in the building with him. and B, because he knows he's going to have some support on the other side, or on the other side to help him out. So I like that. But my fourth guy, and I know we're talking about him right now, would definitely be Justin Fields. If he is at 6, I think you got to take this kid. He's tough as nails. I'm pretty sure he broke like his complete left side of his rib cage against Clemson in the first half, and then he just didn't stop in the second half. And I know a lot of Ohio State quarterbacks don't pan out. Most of them actually never do, but I think he's a little different. I think he's explosive as anything. And I almost look at him as an upgraded Jalen Hurts, a guy that's definitely mobile and athletic, but can sling the ball 40, 50 yards down the field pretty accurately. Now, in the NFL, that's definitely something we'll have to see. But in college, he looks like he's dominating, and he is dominating some of the top nations' secondaries.
Yeah, listen, I actually like Justin Fields, and the reason I didn't bring him up, obviously, is really because he had that great semifinal college, against Clemson, or the college football playoff in the semifinal. He played it really well, and he played a lot better than I thought he would, and that looks like a huge draft stock lift for Fields going forward. I think because the whole season he was talked about being at number 2 right behind Trevor Lawrence, and I still think he's probably the second best quarterback in this draft. Zach Wilson's got a lot of talk from BYU, and he's had a really good year with them as well. But listen, I think Justin Fields is a really good quarterback, and I agree. If he's there at 6, you have to at least think about it. Because if the Eagles think he's going to be a franchise guy and he's going to be a great quarterback going forward, you have to make the move, because you're not going to be at 6 a lot. I know a lot of people think that the Eagles are going to suck next year, so they could be at 6 again. You never know. But I like Justin Fields as well, and with the quarterback, obviously you're not going to get Trevor Lawrence, but I think he'd be a really good consolation prize in this draft. So anything you want to touch on before we head into this mock draft, wrapping up this instant reaction, or do you want to, I know Zach Ertz obviously talked today with the media, and that was a pretty emotional scene. It looked like Zach Ertz his time with the Eagles is probably done with the whole contract situation with him in the Eagles front office, and it looks like they're going to be moving away from him and looking towards Dallas Goedert and younger tight ends moving forward.
Yeah, I was just going to say, going into this draft, I know we spoke a little earlier about moves that, the Eagles should make. And, it's unfortunate to see some of these core guys go that were here in 2017 and even before. But, if they can get some stock out of these guys, some draft capital, move Ertz for a third rounder, I think they should do it. Even second rounder, obviously we would want a second rounder, but a third and maybe a fifth or something like that. So if they can move some of these guys, get some draft capital, again, a big problem that I see, and I think it just translates and can only get worse if you don't take care of it, is these busted draft picks, and they hurt you down the line. If you're able to recover some in this draft, as we discussed, there's a ton of great prospects on the board. I think this is definitely an opportunity to do it with some of the older talent you have on this team. So that's all I have in regards to the Eagles and the draft and stuff like that. But I know we're going to hop in now into the mock draft. So you can lead us off.
Yeah, so obviously this is not surprising. The Jacksonville Jaguars, to finish 1-15 this year, are going to be taking Trevor Lawrence in my first mock draft. Not surprising. 6'5", huge arm, really athletic from Clemson. He's been looked at as the best quarterback prospect really coming out since probably Andrew Luck. I'd say that this is probably the most hyped quarterback prospect we've seen. It's an easy pick for Jacksonville. The Jets really screwed this one up, obviously winning those 2 games at the end of the year, or really just winning 1 game. But he's going to step in, be immediate impact for the Jaguars, I think, and they can be able to build a team around them. They still got a nice running back down there in Robinson, who had a big year for them his rookie year. They could really use some wide receivers in the middle of the round, probably help them out, but they have a lot of talent, obviously, they need to get. So, because, they finished 1-15, they're not a good football team. But, yeah, Trevor Lawrence to Jacksonville, number 1. Who do you got?
Yeah, so, mine's similar. I got Trevor Lawrence going number 1 to Jacksonville. Just like you said, just to recap, a lot of holes on that team. But I feel like, they should just get a guy, and he's a slam dunk, obviously, Trevor Lawrence, to, man this new movement down in Jacksonville. So Trevor Lawrence, number 1.
Yeah, number 2. Listen, I went back and forth with this, and I didn't know where the Jets are feeling right now, but I'm just going to do the safe pick. Obviously, number 2, the Jets are taking Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio State. His draft stock went down a little bit before the college football playoff, and people were saying Zach Wilson may go number 2 instead of Justin Fields. But really, I think he proved in against Clemson that he has franchise level ability. He's athletic. He can make plays with his feet, and he has a big arm. He can throw downfield. So he has complete package, and he showed his toughness. Obviously, like you said, when he took that hit by that linebacker against Clemson, I forget his name, but he's tough, and he came right back out there after he got injured and threw a touchdown pass. So he's a tough kid, and I like him a lot. And I think that obviously the Jets have a lot of other issues than quarterback. It's not all Sam Darnold's fault, but it just really, as of right now, it's probably not going to work with Sam Darnold with the Jets. So I think they should probably move in another direction and take Justin Fields number 2.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be different on this one.
Okay.
I do believe that the Jets may trade this pick to move back. If I had to pick one team, my projected team that the Jets would trade with would be Detroit.
Okay.
I feel like Detroit may be looking to move on from Matthew Stafford. And in that case, I would have Justin Fields going to Detroit. But for number 2, if the Jets had to pick, I'm going to go with O lineman from Oregon, Penei Sewell. I may be pronouncing his name wrong, but I feel like the Jets last year got Mackenzie Beacon in the draft, who's really their most valued player at this point in time, protecting Sam Darnold's blind side. I think Sam Darnold proved to them that he can win in this league, and he won against 2 opponents that no one really expected him to. So with that, I think with also Adam Gase being fired today, I think they might try to bring in an offensive-minded guy and work here with Darnold, a guy that they picked 4th overall no more than 3 years ago. So I'm going to go Penei Sewell to number 2.
Yeah. So the Dolphins number 3 was tough too. They have a lot of needs on offense. I think they could go in my mock draft and still have Sewell available at Oregon, and I think that's a huge, really good option for them as well. But I'm going to go wide receiver. They need a wide receiver and a weapon on the outside for 2. I'm going to go Jamar Chase from LSU, wide receiver. And I think that's kind of early than people expected, especially his stock hasn't helped. Taking the year off and looking at how Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle played before Waddle got hurt in Alabama, but I think that he's a definite number 1 in this league. I think he's going to make an immediate impact whoever he gets drafted by. And, I like, his ability. Obviously, we saw him a lot, more so obviously this year than in 2019 and how he played on that offense with Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that offensive stack. So I like Jamar Chase in this situation, but I don't see them, or I do see them going offensive lineman as well and taking Sewell. But as of right now, I'm going to go Jamar Chase to the Dolphins at number 3.
Yeah, I like that pick, and I could definitely see them going wide receiver. I could even see them going on the defensive end. Again, here though, I would predict another potential trade. This pick obviously comes from Houston, and the Dolphins this year so close to making the playoffs. They look like they're pretty complete as a team, and maybe may want to move back. A potential team that I picked, again, looking for a quarterback possibly. This would be the Carolina Panthers. So I'm projecting that Dolphins would move back to 9. That way they may be able to get another guy. So if that did happen and they moved back in the draft, I project that they pick Micah Parsons from Penn State. Brian Flores being a former linebackers coach for the Patriots. I feel like he wants to only build that D stronger. However, if they did pick at 3, I would also actually have to go Jamar Chase. I think this kid's the next level. At LSU, like you mentioned earlier, he had a monster season. And I feel like this could only help if Sewell does go 2 overall to whoever picks that or the Jets. So I'm going to go Jamar Chase at number 3.
Yeah, so I'm going to go number 4, Falcons. They need help on their defense, I think. And I don't know if they're going to quarterback as of right now with Fields off the board, but we'll have a closer idea when all the reports come out right around the combine. But I'm going to have them go on the defense. I'm going to have them take Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State. I think that he's an immediate impact player stepping in. I know there's some pass rushers, one from Michigan, I forget his name, or from Miami. And I know that they could probably go corner here as well. You can't go, their secondary got eaten up this year as well. But I'm going to go Micah. I think he's an impact immediate linebacker right away. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler linebacker. He's fast, he's big, he's strong, he can blitz. So he can do everything in that linebacker position. So I'm going to go Falcons. Are going to take Michael Parsons.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go defense here too. I don't think the Falcons are ready to sell on Matt Ryan yet. Um, I mean, obviously, things could change, but I feel like just too much money tied up in him, and he's just too old to get the value they'd like to get back for him. So I'm actually going to go secondary here. I'm going to go Patrick Surtain, fourth overall. I think he's really going to play well in the national championship game, and I think that's going to improve his draft stock. I think after this game, he's going to be in the top six in most every mock draft. When he gets shown that he can make plays if they go after him. And I think this Falcons team has so many holes in it, but I think a good cornerback and a cornerstone in that, can definitely be a key move for them. So I'm going to have Surtain going fourth overall to the Falcons.
Yeah, the Bengals need, who are coming up at number 5, they need to protect Joe Burrow. Obviously, that's the number one priority when you find a franchise quarterback. And it was not easy for Joe Burrow this rookie year. He had really no protection in the beginning of the year. So I'm going to go Penei Sewell from Oregon. If he's still there, hopefully, I think that's what the Bengals are praying for. He's going to be a stud left tackle in this league. And he took the year off as well. Some of the top players did in this draft. And he was really impressive at Oregon. I think that he could step in right away and be a big impact on the offensive line. They're going to need it. They still need some other things. Obviously, they're not a great team, but when Joe Burrow's in on that offense, the offense looked a lot better. And Bengals fans should be optimistic about Burrow and this offense going forward, especially with T. Higgins too. I like T. Higgins a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, and obviously if Sewell does make it there, I would definitely pick him to go. However, since I did pick him to go second overall, this is actually going to surprise some people, but I think this guy's going to be really good, not only in the passing game but the blocking game. And if he is going to be available here, but I'm going to go Kyle Pitts from Florida, tight end. I feel like this Bengals offense obviously needs some help on the O line, but they have some good guys on the outside in Tyler Boyd. Obviously, great rookie season from T. Higgins, and I feel like they only want to get stronger on that end. Also, I could see another potential trade here, but just because Sewell's off the board and I already made 2 potential trades, I'm going to go Kyle Pitts, 5th overall to the Bengals.
All right, well, let's lead us to the Eagles, their final pick in the mock draft, because really all we're going to be doing with these probably in the offseason is take it all the way up to the Eagles pick. And at 6 right now, I have the Eagles taking with, they got good players available. With Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, who's an interesting target. And in my mock draft right now, I have Zach Wilson available too. But I'm going to go Patrick Surtain, cornerback from Alabama. I think that he's an immediate step right in and be an impact corner, which is hard to find at such a young age. But he's big, he's physical, and we looked at Darius Slay, and I know a lot of people were, kind of shitting on Darius Slay's play this year. He wasn't fantastic. He wasn't what we expected him to be, but I actually think at times, like the problem is like the Eagles cornerbacks are so bad on the other side that sometimes don't even go his way. And except for that 3-game stretch where he got tore up by like Devontae Adams and guys like, the upper echelon wide receivers in the NFL, he actually didn't play horrible this year. I thought he played pretty good. So if you're bringing in a guy like Patrick Surtain to play across from Darius Slay, I actually really like the secondary going forward. And, it seems like every year they're looking for a cornerback or a wide receiver because they just can't hit in the draft. And that's been a big issue with Howie Roseman and the Eagles scouting department of finding young impact players coming in to, play corner or wide receiver. But here we are talking about it again. So, I'll throw this one to you. What do you think about the Eagles, and where do you think they go at 6?
Yeah, I mean, the guy that I love at 6, and I guess it's just a personal bias, but I love Devontae Smith from Alabama. Again, I know we drafted Reagor, who's a similar build as him and kind of does similar things as him, but I think he's a safe pick. He's really proven that he's the best player in the country, especially at his position this year. So I'm going to go Devontae Smith from Alabama to the Eagles at number 6.
Yeah, I like Devontae Smith too. It's going to be hard. I think there's going to be a lot of good options at that number 6 spot. And that's why they lost the game, I thought, because, they look at the situation where they are at number 6, and it's a lot better than 9, in my opinion. It really is. So it's going to set up for exciting off season. It's going to, set up for, a long all season with a lot of rumors and interesting reports going down. But other exciting news, obviously Sixers are number 1 in the Eastern Conference. They play tonight. I think they play in about an hour or where we're recording this or when we're recording this. But the Flyers are in training camp now. They started today. And the NHL season is going to be coming up soon with the Flyers that have hopes of making a run for the Stanley Cup. And And the Phillies are not far away from spring training. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up, but it looks like for the next couple of months, we're still going to be talking about the Eagles and where they stand this offseason.
Definitely going to be focusing on that, and definitely got some Flyers and Sixers coming up next episode, so definitely check that out. And thank you as always for listening.
And hold up, before we leave, any of interview news heading down the stretch of upcoming interview guests on the pod?
Yeah, so next Friday we're going to record with Villanova basketball announcer Whitey Rigsby, and then we have Jordan Hall coming on the next week, who's a Flyers writer, reoccurring guest. Now this is going to be a second time on the show, so we'll preview the Flyers season. So you'll definitely want to check those interviews out, and if you haven't yet, definitely check out Jordy from Barstool making an appearance last week on the pod. Really good podcast going over World Juniors, the Flyers, and some Barstool stuff. So don't want to miss that. And that's all I have. If you have anything else.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. That's where we, usually drop all our instant reactions and interviews that we do with guests and stuff like that. Also, make sure you subscribe or not subscribe, follow on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our content. And all our podcasts are posted on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, stuff like that. And thanks for listening.